From courtside of the virtual hardwood, it's the NLSC Podcast. This is episode 492. I am Andrew in our forum, Andrew NLSC on X. Joining me as always, my co-host Derek, DP3 in our forum, and DP3G and DP384 on X. Derek, good to be on here talking basketball gaming with you as always, as we do each and every week. Lots of NBA 2K24 news to cover, but what else is new?
I mean, we have to start the show off, Andrew, discussing your 22-year anniversary running the NLSC.
Yeah, it's crazy. When I hit the 20-year marker a couple of years back, obviously, that seemed like a pretty big deal, obviously, and then, 21 years, 22 years, it hasn't gotten old. It's still a lot of fun doing this. Enjoy creating content with you each and every week with the podcast and all the videos that we do and other collaborations that we have and will have. And yeah, it's just a huge thanks to the community for supporting me all these years. It was kind of a rough start in August 2001. Not everybody was keen to see somebody new running the site, and I was still learning the ropes, obviously, and had some ups and downs. And being a 16-year-old at the time, almost 17, didn't have the maturity that I would hopefully grow into over the years, so didn't always handle every situation the best, but it was a learning experience. It's been a very rewarding experience, and I'm glad that I took the gig. It allowed me to get great creative satisfaction making mods and doing articles and videos, etc., and most of all, connecting with the community and making good friends like yourself.
Your consistency is insane. The consistency that you've shown over the last 22 years, whether it's, YouTube content or writing articles, moderating the site, etc., creating topics, all of that stuff. It's also motivating, I think, for a lot of other content creators out there. And, even before I became a member of the NLSC team, and started creating content for the site and, jumping on the podcast and all of that stuff, I was just, an NLSC member. And I loved everything that you did with the site, as far as being fair and balanced, as far as allowing all types of commentary, allowing critiques that other sites would not allow, etc. So I appreciate you for that. And like you stated, it's cultivated in a friendship for you and I. So you and I are now friends. And recently we actually connected again on NBA Live 10 and on NBA 2K14 and had sessions on those games. So we'll talk about that in a moment. But I have a question for you. So 22 years running the NLSC, what has been your favorite part?
It's hard to say because there's been so many great memories. I mean, on one hand, getting to go overseas and attend those community events was a big deal, obviously, because back in the day, it wasn't like the community events now, where it's very much about whose support can we buy. I mean, obviously they were trying to get on our good side back then as well, but they were dealing with everybody in the community. You didn't have to have thousands, millions of subscribers or followers. Obviously, you had to be fairly prominent in the community, as we were, and well established as the NLSC at the time. But they were interested in the feedback. They wanted the positive feedback. They wanted the negative feedback. They wanted us to help them develop the games, help with our feedback, and represent our communities to the best of our ability. So, I mean, obviously, the community events are a big deal. Just hanging out in the forum, obviously, and making friends and having all these great discussions about real basketball and basketball gaming, obviously, and the satisfaction of releasing some of the big mods that I have over the years. It's kind of cliche to say, but it's hard to pick out maybe a favorite moment because there's just been so many of them over the years.
Now, how do you feel about where the site is now in 2023? Like, the content, the forums, all of that.
Obviously, I'd love to see some more activity in the forum. It's tough because we are obviously competing with social media, with Reddit, with so many other platforms these days. But at the same time, I love what we're doing with the original content, with some of the videos that I've been doing this year, the videos we do together, obviously, with the gameplay. I've been doing some more retrospectives for NBA Jam on Fire Edition, NBA Basketball for Intellivision this past week, and some of the articles I really felt I've hit a stride with some of my content in the past couple of years, and of course the podcast is something that we love doing each and every week, and seeing that community build around our podcast and our listeners has just been so rewarding. So I feel really good about our content these days. I'd love to see the modding community have more cooperation. I'd love to see us get away from that focus on paid mods. I'd love to see more people uphold the traditions that we were founded upon with modding. But, I'm still very positive about the site and about the content we're creating. I think we're going to do great things moving forward.
So Andrew had absolutely no idea he was going to get interviewed to start this show. But I feel like you handled that very well.
Not my first rodeo.
So, yeah, exactly. So we do want to talk about recent sessions. Let's get back to, time on the virtual hardwood. We wanted to talk about a couple sessions that we had this week on NBA Live 10 and on NBA 2K14. And the NBA Live 10 gameplay video is actually up on the NLSC YouTube. And we use the fantasy teams option in that game, which is just so nice and so easy to use. And we created the 05-06 Lakers. And we went against the 05-06 Mavericks. And all the art looks good. That game stands out from a graphical perspective, in my opinion. It's very unique. And I think that we played incredibly well. We, using the Lakers versus the CPU Mavericks. Lamar Odom playing like Lamar Odom, finishing with his left hand, etc. Kobe putting up a very realistic Kobe stat line. It was something like 35 or 37 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, something like that. Both of us pulling off nice moves with him, pull-ups in the mid-range, a 3 here or there, attacking the rim with a vengeance, etc. As you noticed, when Sasha Vujacic, when I placed him into the game, I immediately shot a 3. I mean, after all, he is nicknamed the Machine. And he was known for just jacking it up whenever he got the ball behind the 3-point line, and he had that very mechanical release. And we did end up hitting. I hit a 3 with him, and I think a mid-range shot with him. So we did hit a few shots with Sasha Vujacic. Kwame Brown falling down a couple times for no reason, not being able to finish passes, around the rim. That was the thing that excited Andrew the most, is just how bad Kwame Brown played.
The messing up was the most exciting part of the game.
Yeah. There were passes that an average player would normally make, and Kwame Brown was just throwing it to the Mavericks, just throwing it to the other team. There was
Sim, baby.
Yeah, exactly. That's Sim. That's Sim. That is Sim. Sim Nation, everybody.
Yeah.
But there was one alley-oop that we threw to Kwame Brown, and he should have been able to just put it off the glass, as Marv Albert put it in the commentary. And instead of putting it off the glass, he bricked it off the side of the rim and then just collapsed to the floor. And it was like, that is definitely a Kwame Brown moment. But, yeah, that Lakers team, they did make the playoffs. They are, still fun to use. They have some fun pieces. And while Dirk and Jason Terry did give us the business, and so did Eric Dampier, we were able to pull out that win.
I enjoyed how Dirk and Terry were both actually, making us pay when we left them open, or if they created some space, because sometimes in NBA Live 10, I do love that game, but there is a bit of a point guard domination issue at times. As I've said before, Chris Juhan has been a thorn in my side playing NBA Live 10 whenever I've faced him. Playing for the Knicks, I believe, in the default rosters at the time. So yeah, sometimes the point guard scores a little bit too much. But no, it was going to Terry, it was going to Dirk, and they were making us pay. But we did pull out the win, pulled it away as Kobe just went off as he did, and it still impresses me how well that works, creating those makeshift retro teams with fantasy teams mode. And we haven't edited the ratings yet in that roster. I do want to do that. I do want to polish up a Fantasy Sandbox roster, as I've said before, so that we can have some even better, even more authentic games with those makeshift retro teams. But it just works so well. And there's enough players that were still in the league as of NBA Live 10 that we can make so many of these retro teams. And it's funny because we obviously have these detailed mods in so many PC releases. We have actual classic teams in 2K, which we then played with in 2K14, which was a lot of fun as well. But just creating something new with this minimalist modding in NBA Live 10, I love it, Derek.
That fantasy teams option kicks butt.
Yeah.
That mode kicks butt. It's so easy to use. It's so well put together. And yeah, I think that, there's so many different options with that. You made a multi-page list of classic teams that we can put together using the in-game assets. And we still haven't tackled most of that list. So there can be a lot more gameplay videos of NBA Live 10 going up. I did like that about the way the Mavericks played, the CPU Mavericks. They were consistently looking for Dirk. And you can see that on the highlight reel where Dirk is hitting 15-footers, 18-footers. He hits a couple threes. They were using Dirk as the go-to option. So it was nice to see that in a game that's normally guard-dominated, that they were looking for their star forward. So I did appreciate that. NBA Live 10 is, how do I say, it's a smoother NBA Live 09.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. They smoothed out a lot of the animations. They made the control less input laggy. Like when you hit a button in NBA Live 10, like something happens. Or if you move the joystick in a certain direction, it happens immediately. And that's really nice. I think that the game is not over animated like NBA Live 09, and the animations are not as heavy. And I think that's why I prefer it. Also, how great did it work over the PlayStation 3 emulator and through Parsec?
Oh, fantastic. And of course, the other improvement with NBA Live 10 is that you can actually jump for rebounds. There's not that little hop when you're going to miss a rebound. You do that little hop that is a very canned indication that you're going to miss out on the board.
Yeah, there's some really cool animations in Live 10 on the rebounds, including one that happened in our session where Lamar Odom, instead of like a traditional box out, he uses his forearm and kind of like uses it to push the opposing player off the spot. And then he reaches up with his opposite hand and tips the ball to himself.
I don't think I've seen that
cool.
before. I have not seen that very often.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the first times I've seen that, but they have a lot of cool rebounding animations in that game, and the rebounding is far superior than NBA Live 09. It feels like you hardly have any control on Live 09 on the boards. The other session that we had was on NBA 2K14. We connected through Parsec, and we used the Xbox app, which works so awesome. This game is incredibly playable now for Andrew. And we were once again playing co-op. We used the 76-77 76ers with Daryl Dawkins, Julius Erving, George McGinnis, Henry Bibby, Joe Jellybean Bryant, World Be Free, Steve Mix, etc. And we went against the 71-72 Lakers. So obviously Wilt Chamberlain, Jerry West, Jim McMillan, Gil Goodrich, etc. And I blew this one, Andrew, at the end of the game, I feel. Even though I played really well in the first 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, in the last minute, instead of taking a mid-range shot with World Be Free, I don't know, I got caught in 2023 or something. I took a 3 with World Be Free, bricked it. You got an offensive rebound. You kicked it out to me, and I took a second 3 with World Be Free, and I bricked that. And that was the biggest error in the game, and I feel like it cost us the loss, because I think at that point, we were only down 1. So if I had stepped in and taken a 2-pointer, we would have been up 1. And that's not like me to jack threes like that, especially when I'm using classic teams and whatnot. But we had some really good plays in this game where, a couple really nice putback dunks by Julius Erving, 2-handed putback dunks off of missed outside shots. Daryl Dawkins, swinging in from the post and throwing it down one-handed on Wilt Chamberlain, 1 for a basket and foul. World Be Free earlier in the game had some nice outside shots. As you noticed, I preferred having him in the game over Henry Bibby. World Be Free is one of my favorite players of all time. But we got our butts kicked by Wilt Chamberlain, Jim McMillan, and Gil Goodrich. Jerry West didn't do much to us, but those 3 killed us.
Well, Jerry West did hit a couple of big threes, and it kind of emphasizes that he could have been even more deadly back in the day. If he had a 3-point line in that era, Jerry West, who was already a tremendous player, probably could have even filled up the basket even more. But, yeah.
Well, I want to point something out. Jerry West didn't do anything until, the fourth quarter, you're right. And then he hit a couple threes.
Yeah.
Key threes.
Big timely threes, yeah.
Yeah, and the thing with NBA 2K14, if you've ever played against the computer, on anything above rookie, so pro, all-star, or superstar, they make shots all over the floor consistently.
Yeah.
There's a corner three Jim McMillan hit where I closed out. I almost blocked the shot and he smoked it like nothing but net. There were a couple outside shots that Gail Goodrich hit where I was right on his shooting hand and he was just smoking them. So like the computer is really tough on that game.
And Wilt was just merciless down low, as he was, just hitting very Wilt-like shots, actually, kind of those almost turnaround finger roll fadeaway kind of moves that he used to make. And, yeah, he just killed us inside.
But we love 2K14.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that is such a good co-op experience. The game is amazing to look at. All the controls in that game just, make sense. The dribbling is tight. The shooting is fair. It's fun to go down into the post. I was going down into the post quite a bit actually with Dawkins and whatnot, and a couple times with Irving. But yeah, it's fun to use classic teams on that game. It's fun to use regular teams. It's fun for you to play my career and everything. There was a lot of critiquing and even some negativity on the last NLSC podcast about the microtransaction stuff. The greed with the newest 2K titles and everything. But this proves, that we want to be positive on this show. There's a lot of the classic 2K titles that we love, and we thought that they were incredibly fair to the gamer, and one of them is NBA 2K14.
And that's a game that I've warmed up to. I originally had a more negative view of it for reasons I've discussed before. Live 10, I wasn't as big of a fan of as I am all these years later. So we are going back. We're giving these games a second chance. We're not just saying, oh, it sucks and we will never look at it again. Okay, Live 07, we're pretty set in our ways about that one, but for good reason. A game like that, sure. But a lot of games, we will give them a second look. And this is why we are still playing them years later, because we do recognize their value. And that these games were not disposable like more recent games are, because they're not based around those greedy mechanics. This is why we went into detail about that last week. But yeah, so much fun with 2K14 and Live 10. They are two of our standbys for Parsec sessions now. And of course, we also had some fun more recently with the Live 15, even Live 14 as well. So yeah, we're just discovering the fun we can have of a Parsec and having this wide variety of games. And look, it's great to have a few standbys like that, but being able to expand that repertoire of games that we can revisit together has just been so rewarding.
Same here with Live 10, by the way. I enjoy it much more today, even than I did back when it was a, current title. I think part of that is being able to enjoy it with you, right? Because back then my brothers weren't playing NBA Live 10.
Right.
They weren't playing the NBA Live game. So if I played it, I had to play it against the computer. I wasn't a fan of the online scene back then either. But I think I have a super appreciation for how not over animated it is, right? And I think part of that is because the most recent 2Ks are so over animated, and even the recent live, NBA Live 19, that it makes me appreciate the control we have in Live 10 so much more, right? And that's how that happens sometimes. You go back and play a title and be like, hey, I enjoy a lot of aspects of this game more than the recent titles. I should spend more time on this game. So that's kind of what's happened with me with NBA Live 10. But I'll say again, nothing beats playing another human being, either against or on the same team. And I don't mean like with the builds, with the meta, with all of that stuff. I'm talking about just using regular NBA teams or classic NBA teams or makeshift rosters and stuff, in controlling, all five guys on the team, etc. Like that right there is peak gaming to me. And I know that there's a lot of people in the community, in the NLC community, that would agree with that. People like Nate and Roger, the Live 01 legends. That's peak gaming for them. But yeah, I appreciate Parsec. I appreciate that we have that option.
No, it absolutely can overcome deficiencies in a title if they are there, and of course for great titles make them even more fun. And even a mode like fantasy teams that back in the day I thought, oh, that's okay, that's a nice feature, but I've obviously really come to appreciate that because of all the different scenarios that we can create. And it's funny because that feature was very much a throwback to the old school custom teams in the old school NBA Lives. And yet, that's something that I had a lot of nostalgia for. And yet, I didn't really make that connection with fantasy teams or really connect to that nostalgia. But now, with all the things we've done with the makeshift makeshift retro teams with the virtual hardwood legends teams we had with that game there, where you beat me with Hashim Thabit at the buzzer there. All the fun we've had with that. Yeah, just such a fantastic mode, and those are the modes that we're missing in recent games. And things like creating a legend, where you could step into the shoes of an NBA player and play career mode with an established real NBA player. Things like that. We've lost a lot of those modes because, unfortunately, as we've said before, not to harp on the point, they don't make money, so they don't get included.
That game where I hit a game winner on you with Hashim Thabit, that ended exactly how it should have. And I will say that I am sorry that I have beat you with multiple game winners on NBA Live 10. I beat you with a Kevin Durant game winner. I had the Michael Finley full court game winner and the Hashim Thabit game winner. So you need to catch up, Andrew.
Sure, but I was in it at the end. I was competing in those games. You had to win. You had to win at the buzzer. Let me put it that way.
Oh, absolutely. No, they were epic games.
Yeah.
I think that the coolest thing too is that we have this avenue through the NLSC to share a lot of these experiences. Like the NBA Live 10 game that we just discussed between the Lakers and the Mavericks, that is up on YouTube. And after people listen to this show, they can go and check out that video and see what we were talking about. And that's the community aspect that I love about the NLSC. So we're not going anywhere, people. Andrew and I have recorded almost 200 episodes together of this podcast. The top 10 is being rolled out every week. Andrew's articles, gameplay videos, like it's not stopping anytime soon.
No, because we are passionate about what we do, and as we've said before, we want that passion to always drive our content. We don't want to be chasing trends or try to do something that we're not interested in just to hit some kind of algorithm. We've got a great following, we've got great viewers, listeners, audience, and readers on the articles on the site and everything, and we appreciate you and your support.
100%. And also, I want to point out, the community was obviously thinking about Kobe Bryant.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
With the Mamba Moments mode announced for NBA 2K24, he's the cover athlete, all the Kobe stuff going on, etc. His recent birthday, and that reflected in the top 10. And the number 3 play was Teddy Bear the Gamer with 2 huge Kobe dunks on James Posey, and then the number 1 play was 3 dunks in traffic using Kobe. And that was submitted by @problem on X. And that's also from NBA 2K23. So, and there was also another highlight in there for Kobe. It was NBA 2K16, and it was submitted by @ChuckLA92. And it was an alley-oop, and Kobe catches it with one hand and throws it down. So, Kobe has been on people's minds, Andrew.
Rightfully so. I mean, obviously, the being the cover play of NBA 2K24, the Mamba Moments, as you said. But at the same time, I don't think that was necessary because I think for long-time basketball fans, Kobe is often on their minds. I mean, it's still hard, not to get maudlin about it, but it is hard to some days to get your head around what happened there. And of course, but more positively, obviously had a lengthy and spectacular career, and obviously he still is in video games to this day. We can go back and play old favorites as we did this week, but yeah, he's still in games and people love putting him on the floor. Before we go on, a reminder that the NLSC podcast comes out every week on the NLSC, MA-Live.com, as well as our YouTube channel. We're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast apps. If you're listening on any of those apps, we'd greatly appreciate a review. To keep up with the show and everything we're doing with basketball gaming in general, connect with us on social media. On Twitter and Facebook, we are the NLSC. We also have an Instagram, NLSC Basketball, and on YouTube, we're youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. Once again, visit us at NBA-Live.com, where in addition to the podcast, you'll also find all of our original content, as well as our forum and modding community.
Well, I want to get your thoughts on this, because I have some thoughts on it, about NBA 2K24's Mamba Moments mode not including his 81-point game and not including his 60-point final game.
Yeah, that was odd, because especially with the 60-point game, the finale, you would think that a lot of the players they'd be able to license a lot easier. I know that is going back 6 or 7 years now, but at the same time, still a lot of active players or recently active players there. I am surprised that they only did 7 games. I would have thought maybe an even 10, like the original Jordan Challenge. And of course, that's Kobe is played more recently than MJ did, so you would think they'd be able to license those players. And certainly 10 is a nice round even number. I'm sure the detail is going to be there. The screenshots have shown things like even Rondo having that Band-Aid on his chin, for example. So they've obviously put some work into it. People have also pointed out how Kobe has the wrong accessories in a couple of screenshots as well. But only 7 games? That seems a little light.
I expected it to be more, and I thought that the 81-point game was going to be a shoo-in.
Surely.
I mean, when you talk to anybody about Kobe nowadays, they'll bring up the 81-point game. It is widely considered the best game he ever played, right? And a lot of people consider it his, the best moment of his career. And, that's 81 points in a single game, Andrew. And what's weird to me about that is I feel like it has nothing to do with having enough licenses for the Toronto Raptors of that year, because they already have early 2000 My NBA Era's roster in there, right? So my thought is that a lot of those players that are on that Raptors team, they've already had the license for. So I feel like there has to be another reason, and I can't think of what it might be.
It is
Any
strange.
ideas?
It is strange. Yeah, the initial thought was, of course, licensing issues. But as you say, they do have those rosters there for My NBA eras, and of course, they are coming back. The Jordan era, Magic versus Bird era, and the Kobe era, including the LeBron era. We'll get to that shortly. But so the 7 games are the 2001 Western Conference semifinals, Game 4 against the 2001 Sacramento Kings. Kobe sets NBA three-point record versus the Supersonics, so there's going to be another Supersonics team there. The mentee faces his mentor versus the 2003 Wizards. That's interesting that we're going to have an MJ Wizards team in there. We never thought that would happen. Of course, it did kind of happen last year with NBA eras, obviously, but as far as having that standalone team, Kobe erupts for 62 points in 3 quarters versus the 2006 Mavericks. That inspired our game, obviously. The three-point barrage leads to a 65-point game versus the 2007 Blazers, which has gotten Brandon Roy back in the game. And, of course, Chris Webber with the 2001 Kings as well. 2008 Western Conference Finals Game 5 versus the Spurs. And the 2010 NBA Finals Game 7 versus the Celtics. So, I mean, look, that is a good selection of games, obviously. It's got some games that maybe people didn't think of, like the three-point record against the Supersonics and that early Kings team, the 2001 Kings rather than 2002 Kings, and of course the Wizards. So look, those are some good selections, but it still leaves you wanting a bit more. And do you think possibly they could be adding something through paid DLC? Because I don't know.
I was thinking that was a possibility. That was the first thing that came to mind.
A few
you
people
add it
have
on
said it,
for
yeah.
$5, or if I add it on for $10. They've done that with other games. They've done that with tennis video games, for example, where the game didn't originally come with Rafael Nadal, right? So you would download the Rafael Nadal DLC, and it would be like $5 or $8 or something like that. So it could be a money grab moment. It could be a greed moment, but I don't want to say that yet. Let's see what happens. It's possible, but I just feel like it's not a licensing issue for the reasons that I mentioned.
It makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. As far as I wanted to touch on something really quick again about the NBA Live 10 session, because you talked about Kobe's game versus the Mavericks. In NBA Live 10, that is the most realistic Dirk Nowitzki shot I've seen. I don't know if you realize that, like the Dirk Nowitzki shot animation, it looks amazing. But then if you go and use Dirk and play like NBA Live 16, it's horrible. Like, I don't know how so many of those signature shots went backwards when they hit the PS4 gen, but the Dirk Nowitzki shot is absolutely terrible in Live 16 in comparison to NBA Live 10.
So they got the Carlos Boozer in Live 14-15, but then lost the great Dirk animation.
Yep, exactly. But are you going to jump into the Mamba Moments mode immediately on NBA 2K24? Like, is that going to be one of the first things that you do?
I think it might be. I want to see what it's like compared to the Jordan Challenge, and I want to see exactly how they've done it, whether it's going to be sequential, like the Jordan Challenge in 2K23. I want to play through it. I still haven't completed the Jordan Challenge in 2K23, actually. I do want to do that before 2K24 comes out, if I have the chance. But, yeah, I think that would be one of the first things I jump into. after I've played with current rosters and maybe shot around a bit in practice mode. But how about you?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to touch that for a while.
Okay.
I think it's, initially we're going to go on the game. We're going to look at all the rosters, look at the different cyber faces, look at the different interfaces, the different UI, all of that stuff. Check out the ratings, the badges, all of that stuff for the players. Check out if there's any new classic teams or anything like that. We'll probably take a look at the MyNBA Eras rosters. Then, we're probably going to hit the hardwood with a couple regular teams just to see like what the gameplay feels like. Then after that, if we like the gameplay enough, we'll probably create our Legends team in MyNBA and play some co-op games. And that's the way we're going to grow into the game and grow into the gameplay and get used to it. I didn't touch the Jordan Challenge this year, and I think the biggest reason is because I wasn't that fond of the gameplay versus the CPU. I told you that.
Yeah, that's a big factor. Yeah, absolutely.
It's a really big factor, and I think that's probably why you haven't finished the mode and whatnot. I think that with me, it was just too many inaccuracies, too many rush jobs. I don't think Jordan plays that much like Jordan in NBA 2K23. I think it's quite the step back from how he played in NBA 2K11 and the animations that were present in that game. So there were a lot of factors that made me not even touch the Jordan Challenge, which me as a hoop head, as a Jordan fan, as somebody who loves the classic NBA and loves NBA history. If I'm not touching the mode, that there's a problem.
There's a problem with the game. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest reason why. But what are your thoughts on ProPLAY, Andrew? So there was a gameplay trailer, and it showed stuff like Kevin Durant moving like he does in real life. There was Jordan Poole, isolating on Draymond, etc. The animations look incredibly clean. They really do. They look more lifelike. They're not as herky-jerky, as robotic, as, there's not as much ball warping, et cetera, as is in 2K23. And as Sticky Fingers pointed out, even though it is hard to tell with the limited gameplay that we've seen, the foot planning does look a little bit better. I'm guessing that ProPLAY has helped with the foot planning. That's just a guess. But what are your thoughts on this ProPLAY thing now that we've seen some footage?
I mean, it does look very promising. It sounded promising, and now the gameplay trailer has made it look pretty good. Obviously, it's from cinematic angles. Obviously, they've selected clips that really highlight the positives of the new tech. But it does really seem like they've captured authentic animations more so than in the past. They've got this mix of the traditional mocap and the ProPLAY translating animations from real NBA footage. And as you say, it does look clean. It does look smooth. I'm very intrigued by it. I'm hoping that it feels as good on the sticks as it looks in the trailer, because it does, it does look very authentic. So I am looking forward to seeing how it feels. It certainly sounds and looks good from what we've seen, but it's going to be, the proof is going to be when we get our hands on the sticks. How is it going to feel? Is it still going to have those clunky moments? Are we still going to have those AI lapses? Are we still going to have cheap AI that's going to have those psychic steals? Things like that. Are we going to have those breakdowns in the play calling and so forth? And of course, they have brought up in the developer blog some of the improvements to play calling. They're bringing back smart play, things like that. So there's other work going into the gameplay. It's not just a mocap gimmick, obviously. But yeah, I'm intrigued and positive at this point.
Yeah, I'm intrigued about it as well. One thing that does concern me is that, I hope that it doesn't make the game even more over animated, right?
Absolutely.
That's probably my biggest concern, that it doesn't put you in more canned moments, right? That it doesn't make it so you have less control over your player and over the action. I really do hope that they used it on classic teams and classic players and players that you can get in my team. I feel like I saw Mike Wong tweet something in relation to that, or maybe it was another influencer, etc., or dev, and that jump shots look a lot more realistic and better because of this feature. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to use that on some old Dr. J footage, right?
Sure.
Or World Be Free footage, or George Gervin, etc. So I have my fingers crossed that if this ProPLAY feature works as it's being advertised, that it was also used on the classic players.
And one thing they mentioned in the developer blog, in the courtside report, is that the animations are captured in real scenarios, so they're aiming for authenticity in both the look and feel of gameplay. So maybe those 2-minute animations won't feel as clunky. Of course, if you're still getting sucked into them, it's still going to feel very contrived. One of the other big changes with gameplay, of course, the online competitive play and Hall of Fame difficulty in the team control-based modes, Play Now, My NBA, My Team, are going to be basically green or miss. So users will have to nail the shot timing if they want to make jumpers on lower difficulty.
Can I just point something out really quick about that before you even continue? That thing, that does bother me, because people that do want to play on Hall of Fame, for example, my brother and I, we always play our Legend seasons on Hall of Fame. That means that we're only going to get swishes on every make.
Yeah.
Unless they switch up what green means in relation to how the ball goes in. So basically, we can just look forward to every single shot in our My NBA being a swish that goes in. I think they're missing the boat on this one.
I think so too. Yeah.
Either that, or they should put more variety in the makes related to green timing.
Well, definitely, and on lower difficulty levels in the offline single-player modes, more forgiving shot timing is going to be used. Hall of Fame and online play is going to be less forgiving. Now, online play, of course, is being done because of the whole skill gap approach, which, look, I understand. I wrote an article about this, wrote a Monday Tip of article talking about the green or miss approach, and I see the merits of it. I see what they're going for, that, look, if you make a shot in online mode, it's because you have the skills to time it properly. You've got a green release. You didn't just luck into a shot. It is skill-based, etc., etc. But here's the problem with online play, Derek. Lag. So
exactly.
Precise timing when there's lag is, that is tough. That is very harsh. And I can see this being very much a make-or-break approach for online play. Look, the elite players, it's going to please them, obviously, because skill gap and all that. But it also sets the bar very high for entry into the online mode. And of course, remember, there's no in-depth matchmaking, there's no places for less skilled players to learn the game, to get good. So yeah, this is going to be a high bar for entry into the online scene. And it's just, again, cozying up to the elitists and taking that elitist attitude towards the skill gap, that you're not letting people develop the skills to, to compete. And you don't have the matchmaking or anything like that. You don't have the onboarding of other games, other online games. You still have those animation-heavy moments, obviously, compared to a game like Rocket League. So you don't have full control over real physics and so forth that impacts the gameplay like that. So yeah, I think this could be it could be potentially a disaster for the online scene. And as you say, with the offline modes, obviously you can avoid that if you're not playing on Hall of Fame. But if you're playing on Hall of Fame, as you and your brothers do, then okay, yes, you can master the timing, but like you say, is it going to be all swishes then?
Right, exactly. And obviously somebody with a better connection is going to have a huge advantage with the green and miss piece. So the other piece of news was related to badge and skill progression. And basically it's now based off of how much you use that skill, if you get to keep that skill, and if you get to move that skill in a positive direction. And I agree with a lot of people who are worried about this. And you're more familiar with the online scene, but I don't need to play the online scene to get the concern. Basically, what people are worried about is if somebody has a certain jump shot skill that they need to spam in order to keep or progress it, that it's going to kill their team during an online game, right? Because that person is just going to try to shoot a jump shot every single time, right? And they're going to hog the ball, and it's all about keeping their skill. And the other piece of this is that it sounds like if you don't use your skill enough, you lose it. So you can lose badges.
There's regression.
You can lose badges based on lack of usage. So what is this going to do to online team play? It could be a disaster. I don't know. Like I said, I understand the concerns, basically. Like, it could be messy.
I do too. Look, I see again. I see where 2K is coming from as far as saying, okay, it's going to the badges and your progression are going to be based on how you play, which is fine for offline for the NBA side of my career. But like you said, you get online, you have to maintain your skills, your badges, so you have to do the things that activate those badges and succeed with them. You are going to get people spamming jumpers. They're going to be spamming, they're going to be making unnecessary passes to try and get assists and pad their stats to get the badges to fire off and keep that progression. Now, the progression system already for grinding up a player, getting badges, getting VC, upping your attributes and everything, already lends itself to a very me-oriented, selfish style of play online, which is why you see that so much in the rec, because you need to get your numbers to get your VC and to get your badge points and everything else in the past. So people were already looking out for themselves, grinding up their player. That's going to be even worse now, because everybody's looking out for their build, not for the success of the team. Now, if you are on a organized squad, you can maybe build organize your player builds to complement each other and be able to make that work. But in the rec, where if you don't have a squad, and theoretically you go to the rec to find a squad, or at least find a game, find some random games to play, it's going to be a disaster with more selfishness, even more selfishness, and the actual progression system encourages that. So it's another one of those situations where they haven't looked at the big picture of how this is going to affect a situation with a community that's already very toxic and selfish. I think it's going to blow up in their faces.
Like I said, yeah, I totally agree, and that's the word, selfish. I think it's going to breed more selfishness.
Yeah.
And it's going to also breed more one-dimensional play style, which already plagues the online scene, right? Again, it's just, I just feel like it takes, I don't know, it takes us further and further again away from basketball, like the true essence of the sport and the way it should be played and whatnot. But, you know, I won't be going into the online scene. No. But Andrew will be happy to report his findings, because I know that you're going to test it out.
I might test it out, but I don't see myself, with all of this, I don't think I'll be spending a lot of time with it, Derek, because there's just so much non-basketball stuff to worry about, so much meta stuff to be concerned with. And they've even said in the developer blog that more emphasis has been placed on preventing meta builds and so forth and more balance. But I'm looking at it and I'm thinking there's even more to deal with now. There's even more to be concerned with as far as badge progression and regression. And look, there are performance multipliers that will boost all the currently equipped badges. There's this prize called floor setters that prevent badges from dropping below silver or gold. Badges will only ever otherwise drop to bronze, so you can't lose a badge entirely, but you can lose a lot of progress. You can lose a lot of levels on the badge if the situation comes about. But those floor setters are also earned via Season XP. They're part of the base Season Pass. A lot of people have looked at that and said, you know, we've seen how they've pushed their luck with Season Passes and microtransactions before. You know, those floor setters, are they going to be paid boosts in a while? And then people are going to be paying for that advantage. So there's a lot of concerns about this system, and rightfully so. I
just hope that the people who do not spend extra money on season passes, you know, the $9.99 package or the Hall of Fame $19.99 package, I just hope that those people do not feel left out, that they do not feel like they have to spend that extra money and put that extra money into the game, and that they can still have a good experience without it. I really do. I just don't want people spending more than they have to on these games.
Well, you know, it's the point of whether a career mode needs all this grinding and whether it needs these recurrent revenue mechanics. The W, which is exclusive to the PlayStation 5, Xbox Series XS version, the next-gen version of NBA 2K24, it is the WNBA version of My Career. Now there's going to be two starting points, two backgrounds. You can have your player, the prospect, a college basketball sensation, or the undiscovered gem, an up-and-coming player with international experience. If you choose to be the prospect, you start out at 75 overall with more league buzz and other perks and different paths to success. And if you choose the international star option, you actually start out higher, 85 overall, but you have less notoriety, less league buzz. There's other risks and rewards with choosing that option as well. And this is something that I suggested in an article for My Career ages ago, these different starting points where you might start out higher rated, but you have there's a trade-off for that, for example. But having that option in the W shows you can have a career mode with a higher starting point, and starting point as high as 85 overall. That doesn't ruin the mode. You can still make that a fun journey. It doesn't have to be about the grind and microtransactions. The only reason that they're doing that is recurrent revenue. It's not essential to the enjoyment, to the gameplay experience. And
right, they're doing that because the WNBA portion of the game, the women's portion of the game, is not even close to as popular as the men's.
Exactly.
So they know they're not losing any money.
Exactly.
There.
Yeah. But it shows it's possible that they could do it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, right? Like, we know that the game can be made more fair to the gamer. Oh, as we talked about on the last episode, it's how much money that they want to hit the bottom line. And when they say that they went, they were not satisfied with results from last year about how much, money they made off of it, NBA 2K22 and whatnot, I think they called it disappointing financial results. What that means is they didn't achieve the financial goals they set for themselves. And that's what they're disappointed in. It has nothing to do with the game failing. It has nothing to do with the basketball aspects of the game. It has to do with them not hitting their own financial goals. And they want to be able to hit their financial goals in order to get paid bonuses and, have higher payouts and everything. So don't think that when they say they had disappointing financial results, that it has anything to do with the game's sales, right? Like, they still sold how many copies of NBA 2K22 and NBA 2K23? Like 12 million, 13 million copies of the physical game, and then they made all of that extra money in microtransactions. So, yeah.
And it's ridiculous because, what's disappointing for them is still an unimaginable amount of money to the rest of us.
Right, and like we talked about, the bonus payouts, the 70 million to two people that we talked about on the last show and all of that stuff, that's not going back into the game, people. Like, this isn't like, they don't have these ridiculous financial goals and whatnot because there's so many more people working on the game, right? Or like because the games are so much more involved now that they need to make all of this extra money to pay all the extra people working on the game. This basically has 100% to do with bonuses and just how much money they can get to hit their bottom line.
And a couple of other gameplay points. Takeover abilities are no longer part of player builds. There's still going to be a takeover meter. A pop-up menu will allow us to select which takeover ability we want to activate, which sounds a bit arcadey to me, Derek.
I agree. It almost feels like something you'd find in NBA playgrounds.
Yeah.
Right?
Lottery pick.
The lottery pick system and whatnot. I've said that the takeover thing is incredibly arcade leaning. And I feel like it's an arcade feature. I think it was like NBA 2K20 when it was on there, where just a big ball of flames would appear under your feet, and then your player would become superhuman, right?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, he's a ball hawk, and he's stealing everything, or he's blocking everything at the rim and everything. Something moving like no human being could ever move, Andrew. And whatnot. It sounds like something that belongs in like a Dragon Ball Z video game, right? Or a cartoon basketball video game, or like we talked about like NBA playgrounds. Like, it feels like it belongs in those games, not like in a marketed NBA basketball sim.
And adrenaline boosts are no longer lost by performing dribbling moves, but rather when the player is bumped by a defender. Losing boosts actually affect shooting performance rather than slowing the player to a crawl, as in NBA 2K23. There's some more dribble combos, dribble breakdowns, connected to the signature size-up moves, a new blowout dribble where by tapping the trapping sprint while moving, gains that burst of speed while pushing the ball ahead out in transition. Can also get a burst of speed when moving off ball as well. Also talking about timing blocks and steals poorly, being too aggressive will result in more fouls being committed. Directional steals are back, flicking the pro stick in the appropriate direction, tapping the steals with the correct hand, and reaching in the correct direction for interceptions. They're also saying that the shot contest logic has been rewritten. That seems to be something that's said every single year. But you can go and read my breakdown of the gameplay blog. A couple of promising changes there, Derek. I do like the sound of the rotation substitution logic being built around keeping scorers on the floor so the CPU doesn't pull out all their scorers and letting you go on these huge runs against this weak team for because of full platoon swaps and AI scoring droughts. So a couple of good changes, but a couple of concerning ones as well, which kind of par for the course the last few years.
Yeah, it sounds like the mid-range game might have been hurt even a little bit more, the way they're talking about shooting, the way they're talking about the contest system, the way they're talking about how, taking off-balance shots and everything. So we'll see how that goes, because the mid-range game has already been troubling since NBA 2K18 because of the mechanics of the game. It sounds like people who got their hands on the game early and whatnot mentioned that the low post game is fun. That it's better than NBA 2K23, but we will wait and see. It is very, very hard to take anything that people that are at the community day, all of that stuff, the people that are that are 2K next makers and all that stuff. It's very, very hard to just take their word for it on the game. And I'm not trying to knock anybody, but they are promoting the game, right? They're there to promote the game. They're there to say positive things about NBA 2K24. Oh, you need to check out this badge system. It's amazing. The low post game has showed significant improvement and all of that stuff. I need to get my hands on the sticks, right? Like I need to, as do you, we need to get our hands on the sticks to feel the game ourselves and to, basically form our own opinion, because it's really, really hard to take what these people say like at face value at this point.
For sure. Yeah. Trust your own opinions on the game. You trust your own hands-on impressions.
Exactly.
So really quick before we get into the mailbag topic this week, My NBA Eras also got a developer blog. As I said, the Magic vs. Bird, Jordan and Kobe eras are back. There's a new LeBron era that starts in 2010 with the 2010-2011 season following the decision. Some of the players are going to be aging into different cyber faces over the years. For example, Kobe starts with young Froby, then going to his shaved look that he had as he got older. There's going to be different era-appropriate media recapping the action in the hub. It's going to start out with a newspaper in the Magic vs. Bird era, and then going into a Web 1.0 style web pages for the 90s. Kind of cool there. My NBA Online has got additional roles for better management. You can assign people different tasks so they don't have complete control over everything if you just want to give them certain roles. There's a MyNBA Lite version, which is a streamlined franchise experience, cuts down on all the stuff you have to manage, basically just focusing on re-signing players, trading players, and drafting players, winning championships, and of course the 2023 collective bargaining agreement. Some of the changes that happened there have been accounted for as well. So not a whole lot has gone into MyNBA compared to last year. Not a huge surprise there. I did think we'd get some more starting points over the years, Derek. Maybe I was a bit ambitious for this year, but yeah, they have added the LeBron era at least. So what's your take on that?
I will say this. In the sports gaming space, 2K is doing a lot of things with their NBA series that no other sports games have. Like the detailed My League / My NBA customization. The My NBA eras, being able to go back decades and, them having most of the art correct and a lot of those licenses and everything and promoting that content. And while a lot of it does feel like it's rushed, a lot of copy and paste jobs and everything, at the same time, that content is in the game and it is very unique in sports gaming. So I have to give them credit for innovating. I have to give them credit for continuously trying to grow the series and, show, give people new options and all of that stuff. Unfortunately, gameplay is paramount, and without great gameplay and without balance and without being fair to gamers and whatnot, the game is never going to shine as bright as it should, right? And the community will never be as happy as they should be. But as far as like having options, as far as having content, depth, and just continuously trying to improve the series, it's probably the best in sports gaming.
I'm inclined to agree. Absolutely. And like you say, though, gameplay is paramount. I mean, I love what they did with My NBA Eras in 2K23, but not being able to fully get into the gameplay, and of course the inaccuracies with the rosters, with those historical rosters, also was a turn-off to getting into that mode. I hope this year, if nothing else, they don't have things like Terrell Brandon being 5'1" or Horace Grant having a generic face, things like that. If nothing else, they need to get that kind of attention to detail right. Are there going to be some ratings off here and there? Sure. Are there going to be some missing players? Absolutely. But if nothing else, avoid those really sloppy mistakes.
Hey, and guess what? There's people in the community, great roster makers who know their basketball history, that would touch up that content for free.
Yeah.
And I'll keep saying that over and over and over again. There is absolutely no reason why 2K can't hire one of these people and or spend more time and resources themselves on it. We know how much money the company makes off of this game.
Yeah.
We talked about it on the last episode and everything. We know how much time they can dedicate to stuff like this. So let's be real here. There are no excuses for those inaccuracies and the number of them. There's no excuses for, copy, paste, attributes, signatures, all of that stuff. There's no excuse to have Mario Chalmers be a copy and paste job of Mike Conley. Like, there is absolutely no excuse for that. So, I won't accept any excuses in relation to that stuff.
But before we wrap up here, Derek, how about we open up the mailbag?
To the mailman. What an unbelievable dunk.
So I asked the community, what is your favorite Kobe Bryant moment, either in real life or on the virtual hardwood? And the reason why I brought this up is because obviously NBA 2K24 is centered around Kobe. They have the Mamba Moments mode. He had a recent birthday, etc. Kobe is on people's brains. So before I give my favorite Kobe moment, and before we get into the community responses, what is your favorite Kobe moment?
It's tough because there's so many, obviously, but I think I'm going to have to go with that incredible bank shot that he made against the Miami Heat in the 2009-2010 season, I want to say, to win the game. Obviously, Kobe's been compared to MJ, called the closest thing we've had to MJ, not an unreasonable assertion in that regard. But yeah, his shot-making ability, certainly comparable. Just some of the incredible shots he used to make under duress, and of course to win the game or to tie up the game at the end. Those clutch buckets he made. I think that bank shot, to bank it in like that with that little time left on the clock and with defenders draped all over you, that stands out in my memory as one of his best game winners.
So my favorite Kobe moment actually was live. And it was in 2006, so during the 05-06 season. It was March 20th. And Kobe put in 43 points on my Celtics in an 8-point win. They had lost the earlier meeting in the during that season, but they won this game. And we had great seats, like a broadcast view, lower level, for this game. And what was most impressive about Kobe is just his sheer fluidity. It looked almost like he was moving in slow motion live. His jump shot, the way he would get to the hoop, it was all so methodical, yet it was pure basketball, right? Like you would watch him play and it was just like, this guy is so smooth. And what's funny about watching a game live as opposed to on TV is on TV, the game often does look faster than it does when you watch the game live. But when you watch the game live, you have a much more higher appreciation for the fluidity of these athletes, for how they move and everything. And you can just see it a lot better in person. But Kobe was such a smooth operator. Being able to watch him, score 43 points in the 05-06 season, up close and everything, that would be my favorite Kobe moment. But basically, my best friend and I, we left that game just talking about it this man is smooth, right? That is some fluid basketball that we just watched.
Reminds me of when we were playing with him in Live 10 and going into the signature size-ups, and you got Marv Albert on commentary saying, Kobe's starting to dance, and that's what he'd do. He'd go into that motion, and okay, that was his signature motion, and you knew that, yes, the ball was going up, but it didn't matter. A lot of the time, it just went up in two people's faces, and through the net it went.
And when Marv Albert said that on NBA Live 10 in our recent session that we talked about earlier, you smoked that three-pointer. You went into a Kobe type size up, stepped back and hit a three, and that was very Kobe-esque.
Very satisfying to do. Yeah, I mean, so many memories. We obviously talk about growing up watching Michael Jordan. We grew up watching Kobe as well. He is part of that generation. He came along in 1996. We were teenagers at the time. That class of 96 draft class is very nostalgic to us as well. And we saw Kobe's whole career.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
It's crazy that we watched his entire career all the way up until his last game.
I remember watching his last game, and of course, started out a bit cold, and he took 50 shots in that game. But when he warmed up at the end there, that was an epic finale. I mean, that wasn't his best season, obviously. The age had taken its toll, injuries had taken its toll, but there was still some Mamba at the end there.
And folks, you can't rig that. If you go back and watch that game, look how many contested shots he hit.
Yeah,
they were all over him on a lot of those outside shots, and he was just burying them.
Once again, incredible that they don't have that as the in the Mamba Moments challenge in 2K24, a missed opportunity.
Absolutely.
And speaking of games that should be in the Mamba Moments challenge, we throw it over to the community now. Bucky T says, the 81-point game was unreal to me. Lakers usually play late night for me, so that was a school night, and I remember actually going to bed when he got to over 60 points, and went to bed thinking he's going to score close to 100, and woke up, and he had a record-breaking 81. And yes, I was actually working at an internet company, an internet provider at the time. I was just about ready to go home, shutting up, and check the news, jumped online, checked the news before I left, and checked the scores, and saw 81 points. Really? 81 points? Kobe scored 81? I think that... I mean, we obviously knew that he was a tremendous player by that point, could get buckets, but I still think that surprised us because that seemed like such an insurmountable number to get.
My brother and I have watched those highlights so many times because they're up on YouTube, obviously, and whatnot. And just his shot making, once again, like I mentioned earlier, just looks so fluid and it just looks so effortless and whatnot. And, we still talk about that game today. We bring it up all the time because we're always using Kobe in video games. So it comes up quite frequently.
And next up is Chuck, Chuck LA92. My first time watching Kobe in real life in 96. I was a member of the Future Lakers Club and received an invitation to watch a private practice at the Great Western Forum. Fond memories. Yeah, that sounds really cool.
What's crazy is how good Kobe looked in 96, right? Sure, he had a rookie year that, coming right out of high school where he only averaged about 7 points per game and whatnot. But when you look at that early footage, Kobe still stood out as somebody who was going to be great, right? Like he had all the mechanics, right? You saw the Jordan mechanics in him and everything and whatnot. So yeah, it is wild how good Kobe Bryant was at 18, 19 years old.
I remember that Robert Horry at the time, right about 97, I guess, 97, 98, said that one day he was going to be the all-time leading scorer, which LeBron is now, obviously. And somebody said, because Kobe's entered the league as a high schooler, so he's going to be around a long time, which he was. But Horry said, no, because he's that damn good. And obviously injuries might have happened if not for some injuries there at the end of his career. Kobe could have actually surpassed Kareem before LeBron did. And as it is, he is there in the top 5 all-time scorers. And as you said, the greatness was there. It was apparent from the start, even when he wasn't getting the playing time and the big numbers. But the skill was apparent. There's a reason he was named an all-star in his second season. The fans saw that as well as other players and coaches. So, well-deserved.
Let's put it this way. You could just tell.
Yeah. Steve, the Live King, says, the first time I ever saw him play in Toronto, he had a game winner on the Raptors. I still have the pick right before he did it. It was worth every penny. So yeah, once again, envious of you and Steve for getting a chance to see him live.
And apparently Kobe loves putting it to the Raptors.
Yeah. Game Boy TV says, I was at the Portland Trailblazers game when he hit a 3 at the buzzer to win the game in double OT. I was devastated as a little kid and will never forget it. I was never a Kobe fan from that day forward. I mean, when you are that great, and he's not the only great player to be kind of disliked by the opposition, you kind of dislike the player or you kind of cheer against them, but you still have that respect, that underlying respect for them, I think. Yeah,
you can tell by the way he worded that he still has an appreciation.
Definitely.
For Kobe and what he could do and everything. I mean, back when, we scored that 43 on my Celtics and they the Lakers won that game that I went to, of course I wanted the Celtics to win, right? I was a huge Celtics fan at the time, and the Celtics Lakers rivalry was still on people's minds and everything. But at the same time, I have an appreciation for great players and great basketball. So I obviously appreciated Kobe.
And heading over to the NLSC Discord now for one last response here. Sluggy says, when Kobe won his 5th title against Boston for sure, off the court, winning an Oscar. True Mamba mentality. Of course, he did have that great short based on the letter he wrote when he announced his retirement.
Yeah, so I still can't believe the Celtics lost that series.
I thought they had it too, yeah.
Won his 5th, yeah. I mean, they were up by 15, I want to say, in the second half of that game, and we thought it was over. We thought the Celtics were going to win that one and win their 2nd championship in the KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen era. And, yeah, much to our surprise, the Lakers came back and won the series in 7. And, Kobe got his 5th ring, beating his friend Shaq, who ended his career with 4 and whatnot, and kind of solidifying that, hey, you know what? Kobe can do it on his own. He didn't need Shaq, right? Because that was a big thing after Shaq and Kobe separated in 04-05 was, will Kobe be able to do it himself?
Definitely.
Will he be able to do it without that second superstar? Who's going to be better after they separate, Shaq or Kobe, or who's going to have more success? And, after his 5th ring, his 2nd without Shaq, you couldn't argue anymore.
That's right, because Shaq got the ring first. Obviously, Dwayne Wade was the finals MVP, but Shaq did tip the balance in favor of the Heat being that contended for a few years there. Right.
But again, Shaq did have, Dwayne Wade and, he had Antoine Walker on that team and whatnot, while Kobe was stuck with Chris Mim and Smush Parker.
Yes.
So there was it was a little bit different. Kobe did finally get some much needed help, later on with, Pau Gasol and a more mature, Andrew Bynum and whatnot. And then he had Trevor Ariza, who was incredibly helpful during the 08-09 season. And then obviously Meta World Peace for 09-10. So he did end up getting pieces around him that helped him, as with any championship team, get him over that hump. But yeah, I can't really blame Kobe for 04-05, 05-06, and 06-07.
And of course, Kobe ended up with 5 rings, Shaq ended up with 4, but as Shaq will tell you, Charles Barkley has none.
Yes, exactly. He likes to remind us of that constantly.
But thank you for those responses, for sharing those memories of Kobe Bryant. We don't need any excuse, really, to share great memories of Kobe Bryant or any of the great players in NBA history, of course. And we love that discussion, Derek. We love people sharing their basketball gaming and real basketball memories because we're very passionate about both.
Absolutely. I mean, I've been obsessed with basketball and the NBA since I was 4 years old, Andrew. So it hasn't gotten old. I still think about it every day. I played for a few hours this morning, so I'm still playing the game. We played pickup and whatnot. So, I just can't get enough of it.
And, of course, we will be back next week and every week to talk about basketball and basketball gaming, more NBA 2K24 news leading up to the release in September. And, of course, we'll be talking about what we're playing as well, what we're modding, everything we're doing with basketball gaming. Basically, like you say, Derek, it doesn't get old.
No, it's awesome. And thank you to the community for participating in the top 10. All of our different community questions, hopping on the Discord and discussing, virtual hoops and the real basketball scene there and everything. You guys are awesome.
With that being said, that has brought us to the end of this week's show. As always, we thank you for tuning in and invite you to join us again next week, either on the NLSC, maybe-live.com, our YouTube channel, or your podcast app of choice. In the meantime, please connect with us on social media. That's where you can get in touch with us and, of course, stay up to date with all of our content. So, Derek, go ahead and plug the handles.
You can find me on X, formerly Twitter, at D43G and at D4384. You can find me over on the NLSC, obviously, D43, and on YouTube, D43.
I am Andrew in the forum and Andrew NLSC on X. The NLSC is on X and Facebook at the NLSC. We're also NLSC Basketball on Instagram and Threads. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/NBA Live Series Center. And of course, keep it locked to the NLSC itself, maybe-live.com, for everything we do for basketball video games. So, thank you once again for tuning in, and until next time, I'm Andrew.
And I'm Derek.
Go get buckets, everyone.